Good afternoon, Bina. It's Friday again, 26th of June today. HR Bullets with Bina and Julie. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm really well. And as you said, it's Friday and it's wonderful. Thank you.
We're always so happy on a Friday, aren't we?
Definitely.
Apart from it's a little bit warm. So we're going to speed through the HR Bullets today, aren't we, with our hot topics.
Yeah.
So, Bina, what are our hot topics for today that we're going to get across?
Right. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, is furloughing. We're talking about a little bit about flexible furloughing scheme and also things like holidays, maternity, paternity, anything that where people have had to take another time off or may need to take time off, and also about documentation that you would need if you're putting people on a flexible furlough scheme. And one of the other things that I would really want to just very quickly touch on is when people are going back to work, employers, and especially if they are in managed buildings or office buildings or anything like that, or any premises where they're sharing the facilities, then what they should be looking out for and as responsible tenants and landlords and employers, obviously. So those are the kind of things that we'll talk about today.
Sure. Perfect. So, number one, flexible furlough and complications.
Yeah, well, flexible furloughing scheme, as you know, well, furloughing has been going on since March, and then flexible furloughing scheme as an additional part of that, which gives employers a little bit of breathing space because it allows you to bring your employees back in on part-time basis if you wanted to from 1st of July, so which is next Wednesday. And realistically, it's not an element of furloughing where you have to do it. It's not mandatory. It just gives you an option that if you want to bring any of your employees back at work for some of the time whilst they're on furlough, you can do that. And so for that, you would actually need some documentation. You have to have that agreement with your employee to say, you're putting them on flexible furloughing scheme. What does that mean? How many hours they're going to work, when they're going to come into work. And obviously when they are not working, then they will be paid the furlough pay. So the employer needs to do a lot of calculations and work out exactly what they're paying for and what they're not paying for. Yeah. So that's something that I think is going to be one of those. It just trundles on, it just keeps chugging along. So we just need to keep people reminding that needs to be done. I've mentioned paternity, maternity, adoption leave. There are times when, even though we're on furloughing, there may be people who may be on maternity leave or might be wanting to go on maternity leave or paternity leave or adoption leave, anything like that, then, you automatically go back to whatever that policy talks about. Yeah. So just be mindful that the pay calculations and the time off calculations and all that kind of things, the arrangements will click back into what the policy says, what the legislation says. So that will supersede furloughing. So just be mindful. You can't have furloughing and maternity leave, for instance, all at the same time. You can have either or.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things. And then we were talking about documentation. So please make sure all your documentation is in place as you start changing the contracts. If somebody's on furloughing and they agree to be on furlough, but now we want to bring them back on part-time, then you need to do that. If you're bringing them back full-time, you need to do that. If you still want them to carry on working from home, make sure your documentation says so. So there's a number of things that you need to think about. Holidays is one thing that keeps coming up. And as you know, we're in summer months. A lot of people are on furlough. Some people will carry on being on furlough in July, maybe August, September, or the summer months. And one thing that, there is a friction, I suppose you can call it a friction or confusion as to, if somebody's on a furlough, being furloughed, can they also be asked to take some annual leave? And a number of people are kind of, thinking that, no, you don't have to do that. unfortunately, yes, if your employer says that, you know, you need to take some time off, then you do need to do that. That doesn't mean that, you know, and I think a lot of the times, because it was said and it's been stated on you know, on the last few bulletins that if you are on a furloughing scheme or on furlough, you could actually not take any holidays, and you can spread it across onto the next year. It doesn't actually say that that is compulsory. It just says it gives you an option. However, as an employer, if the employer can ask you to take the time off as and when it's it's needed for operational reasons. So be mindful of that. And the last bit I really wanted to talk about was, obviously everybody's thinking about going back to work, whether it's on 1st of July or 4th of July or a bit later on. If you are actually an employer and you have got offices in in one of these managed buildings, then I'm actually in a managed building, and so I've had a notice from my landlord yesterday to say, we are putting all the measures in place as people are coming back into work, but obviously, they've told us exactly what they're going to be doing, especially in general main public areas within the building. Obviously, they've reminded me as one of the tenants that, look, I have a responsibility too in making sure that not only I'm safe, my office is all clean and safe, and I meet all the standards that are required to bring people into it now. But then, of course, I need to behave, reasonably within and safely within the general public areas within the building. So that's something that I think people need to just be mindful of as you start bringing in your employees, and that message has to go all the way down to all your employees when you bring them back in, and keep reminding them, because it's so easy to be a little bit unaware of it, or a little bit just not too careful about making sure that we have a responsibility towards everybody's safekeeping. That's me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I went to see one of our clients, our joint clients, Bina, this week, and felt really safe in that building.
Yeah.
The thing they'd set out was really, you could tell, huge risk assessment from people that are visiting to people that are in the offices. So it's very important both parties understand that, isn't it? So yeah, back to work. And as you said, maybe after the 4th of July, the golden day, people feel a bit more safer about going back to work, so it's just going to increase. I know many of my clients are definitely sending their employees back in now, so it's kind of a really good feeling in some ways. Slow small steps, I guess, but yeah, it's good.
And I think one of the things I would just say lastly, that if anybody has any questions or queries about documentation, risk assessments, anything like that, please feel free to contact me. I mean, they can find all that on the Gov.uk website or on the HSE website. But again, if they're still kind of, confused about any of that, then contact us, both of us, and then we can deal with that.
Well, it's a complex area, and even though there's guidelines, there's sometimes some grey areas. So like yourself and myself, you're dealing with it on a daily basis, so that you've got real life examples. So definitely, I mean, Bina's more of the HR expert, but between us we can certainly help. And is it worth mentioning just about the fact that we're going from furlough to redundancy more, and just to make sure that those clients are doing the right thing?
Well, redundancy, that's the fact of life now, and it will be for a number of employers and unfortunately employees. And you see the numbers being advertised about 4,400 and 1,000. It's just like lottery numbers. And yes, the question keeps coming up as to whether somebody who's on furlough, can they be then made redundant straight after, or can they start the process of consultation? And the answer is yes. Of course, follow the process. follow the process and make sure you don't miss any steps within the process. But yes, it is permissible, and it you know, you can do that. So that's going to happen more and more come July. Yeah.
I know, and all those clients out there, definitely seek advice about the selection process, the pools, the consultation.
Yeah.
We absolutely don't want any of the clients getting any penalties, because if you don't follow the rules, it can have not good consequences. So yeah, definitely get in touch.
No excuse for not following that rules. The rules and regulations, the processes must be followed. Definitely.
Lots of help out there, but it's good to know they can pick up the phone and just ask. It doesn't matter how small the question might be.
Yeah.
So, perfect. Well, that's it for today, Bina. Lovely to see you again. And
lovely to see you.
Yeah. And hopefully it does cool down a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah, I think next Friday will be a little bit cooler. For sure.
Winter jackets on. So bye for now, everybody. Lovely to see you, Bina. And have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.